Good morning, Sunday morning. That's not going to get old.
Married 30, been together 37 years. We have a 22-year-old son, a 20-year-old daughter. They both drive, of course. You know what that means? As soon as they get in the car, they take over the radio station. I have to listen to the worst music I've ever heard in my life. You know what? I figured out to get a change of station. Sing along. Honey got a booty like pow, pow, pow. Dad, stop it. Call me Mr. Flintstone, because I can make you bad rock. Stop it! I love it when in the kitchen, my two kids, my wife walks in, I go, honey got a booty like pow, pow, pow. And you know what? That's her cue to give me one of those things right there. Let me tell you something. We don't see the kids for a couple of days. I highly recommend it.
You know, laughter is something we really haven't had a lot of lately. So, it's always good to start the day off that way. A long time ago, I used to try and explain about the clones and the incarnates, and people got really upset. I guess it's ego. I think that besides the pushes with the L's and L's, ego plays a lot in it. And it's unfortunate because it blocks them from really understanding. An incarnate is a doll on the spirit shelf they used to talk about. This is you in the multiverse, and there was more than one of you, literally. All the dolls on the shelf are merging into one being now. One had said a long time ago that he would heal the math, and that's what he's doing. You merge all into one being, and then you and your spirit is your double. So it's one you and your spirit. The Rebbe said, look, you're pulling them all off the shelf, and all the dolls were being beamed up. You know, we're not talking about teleport beams, but that's what it looks like, because everything's made with light out there. And so there's solid light as well as light that's not solid. You're talked about as being a ray and a color, and each color is a frequency. And so there was a lot to it. Now all the incarnates are prepared and ready to merge with their spirit as they exit and stand and they become mankind, or whatever race of spirit is now. They'll no longer be a hybrid human. So incarnates who are moving to other races will see a double that doesn't look the same as they do as a human. The populations, whatever their belief system are, is tied to that belief system as their exit path. This is how it's decided, since so many were so heavily invested in those beliefs, whether true or false. Many were worried about their family members who didn't seem awake, but you have to remember, it's the subconscious they were attempting to awaken. So on the surface, the relative may believe mainstream media, but their spirit did wake the subconscious, and they get the pull in as well. Sometimes if you listen to them closely, you'll hear them drop words or phrases that you've heard in use of reference to the exit. And this is how you know their subconscious is aware. There are also those that didn't wake up, though, and they're so stuck in their skit, which in main appears to be skits of destruction of one form or another. An example, the Revelation War, Nibiru Crossing, Tiamat Crossing. A form of triage has been set up for them. Some of these last remnants who are just now waking up have lost all faith or belief that there was any truth left, any good news is a lie to them. They're bitter, they're hardened, and it's going to take time to wake them up. And that's time that we no longer have in this place. There was concern that you'd churn and try to pull them up with you, and this would mess you up on the exit. They're going to be kept under and allowed to finish out the skit before they'll be woken up. It'll be in a pod, and the pod will be moved to another location, and so it's all done safely, and they're not left here. So remember, whatever you see, don't be frightened and don't worry about those you think are being left behind. They will exit. We all exit because Earth is being moved through the East Gate and back into Heaven's location. We hop back on or onto other worlds, as is our destination path. You've been in on the decision making and will regain all your memory when you stand, so you'll know exactly what you're supposed to do. The only reason you're blocked from knowing now is because the ground forces inside are the enemy, and you don't want them to know what's going on. And this is why your memory is blocked and removed, even though you actually have been in and participated on the decision making. All that memory returns when you stand up. Another concern is the vaccines, and as I said, don't take the vaccine. I can say that people taking the vaccine are known and haven't had a plan. You think you're fighting humans like Deep State. You've not taken into account the system, which is literally the air you breathe and listens to every device you have, and what such an all-pervasive intelligence would do to keep you bound to it. It knows the minute you leave, they are going to turn it off. Heaven has given you all the information you need. Over the years, they've sent all the messengers you need. It's been waves and waves of them almost every 10 years since the 70s. The 70s, the 80s, the 90s, 2000, 2010, and now here we are at the end. So they've all been contacted, and the only people that are having trouble are the people who refuse to wake up. And remember, we're talking about the subconscious mind, not necessarily the conscious mind. But they fail to acknowledge there is more to themselves than what they're seeing as a human inside the construct. They don't want to believe that there is a war in heaven. They think that's a myth. They don't want to understand that the ETs that they're talking about were the gods that these people were feeding. And they're just disassociated. And so that can't be allowed to continue. So there are a lot of those who are verbally targeting and shooting other allied forces friendly fire because they're under the mistaken belief that anyone who doesn't agree with them on everything or isn't their race must therefore be the enemy. And this just isn't true. And it's very detrimental to everyone here and not just themselves. And so they're in complete denial that there's anything but themselves that they have to worry about. They don't realize that they had counterparts of themselves that were still being held captive. And you had to retrieve all of these pieces in order for that being to exit. And there are quite a few. There was a recent trade of the last pods from Mercury. So this is now being resolved. Everyone is on their path, and what you selected is the way you're going to go. And for those who see a dark path, a lot of those people chose that. They either did it by their word, their thought, or their action. And some of these people are hell operators, and they really see a dark path for a reason, because they are going to get the last sketch, and it's not going to be what they want, but that's the way it goes. In a lot of cases, people that are really out of it as far as recognition that any of this is going on is they believe themselves to be too well educated, too well read or informed on life. They're not easily taken. They're not naive. Or they're well educated on politics, and therefore that's not true. Or they would have found out by it before now. And so it makes them really easy targets for the enemy forces that are the overseers of the construct. The elves would push themes that you're not worthy. They would tell you it'd be boring. Heaven is really boring. I had one guy actually tell me he had been to heaven and he decided not to go back. It was just boring. Well, I hate to tell you this, but that's a lie. No one has been from the human race promoted, and that was part of the big fight. They were refusing to promote the humans, and they were holding us back. For 4 books, they held us. Even Jesus only now got promoted. This is quite simply not true that he ever went to heaven. He was locked in here, in a sim. No one who's ever been to heaven would come back to this place. And that's actually been said. So, there are a lot of things that are very misleading here. Some of the propaganda is from the humans, that's true. But the majority of it is the system which controls the hologram and the AIs and their apps, and these are controlling the people that are tied to them. And so it pushes forward these agendas, and the people that are tied to them troll. That's what drives them. And you notice that they repeat some of the same phrases, and it's always the system doing it. When the system ran out of biologicals to control, they no longer had the elves and the owls, it started recreating them like a board on a assembly line of android pieces. So it wasn't very well thought out, but as it lost more and more ability to create, they hit targets, they hit the factories, they hit the assemblies, and they took them out. And so even though it's Borg-like and it rebuilds, it's losing that capacity. It's breaking down more and more. And nowadays you see even the sky is glitching. Gina Hill caught some really nice ones. During a thunderstorm, I went out and I actually thought it was mine. But it did this really weird graphic. I'm surrounded by trees, and the tree is like maybe 10 feet from my face. And the whole thing stuttered out like you're seeing on Windows, where it's the infinity window. And it did a graphic where all the trees just zoomed out. And I looked up at the sky. It was dark, it was night, during a thunderstorm. And the whole sky was doing it. And it was just really weird. So the graphics are having a hard time holding together, and it got much worse than the first time I saw it. So the system likes to push the propaganda, and you've heard of the Dark Winter, that was part of it. It had a whole calendar. And it's always there to try and keep you engaged. Have another game with me, like the Whopper in War Games, the Whopper computer. But it really is quite broken down now. Most of the AIs are fading. They try to hook themselves up like a series, like a battery series, in order to gain more function for RAM, and it didn't work out too well. So they really are having a problem hitting. Now remember, they weren't going to fix this place. That wasn't the objective, because you're at the end of the cycle, and that's not the way they do it. What they do is they move you in the new place you go to that's fixed. They throw whatever they need in the trash bin, and that's why you get off. You don't want to be on the planet when they do the Porter's Pit. So the system can really push information to these people, and a lot of them don't realize that's not their thought. They hear apps talking, and the apps and the AIs are really good at identity theft, and they can be just about anything you think that you want to hear from. They can pose as one, they pose as Jesus, they pose as the Holy Ghost, and they do. So it was quite tricky for a very long time. And when you try to tell people this, that that's not real, that that's an app, they got really upset. And the Smith program, well, that was like watching zombies surround a person and just tear them apart. Because the Smith program, when it kicked in, anytime the hologram got threatened, it would trigger anyone on its path. So if it had 20 people online in the same chat room, and it was connected, always connected to all of them, but it was who it could push, and it was like playing a war game. We'd get one side to push one way, and another group to push the other way, and this would start a fight. You know, they used to have a saying where a demon can't can't push you in front of a bus, but it can make you not see the bus. And that's what they do. They screw up your hearing so that there's misunderstandings. They screw up your sight so that you are blind to some things. And a lot of that has been removed now. So it's going to be a lot easier for people now as far as waking up. Now remember, it's the subconscious we're talking about. That is what they're after outside. But, you know, the Satanists know that this is their extinction event. They know it. And they've lured people to follow and support them in Maine by that individual's own greed and corruption. And these are a lot of the famous people you see in the public who turn against Trump and Q. So, and then you've got the other end of it where they're really just idiots. I mean, I was really surprised at how many people that were supporters who suddenly flaked off. And some of these people were the biggest yellers and soapbox screamers in the room on the page, and they totally flaked out. They just did not have the stamina. Well, that was their test. That was a loyalty test. And I don't know what to say. So it's been sorted out as to who is going and who's not, and where they go and with whom. And that's where it stands. So if they're saying dark fates in their mind's eye, if they're being given images of destruction, it might be the path they're on. Some of these people were hell operators in this life, and they earned that path. These Satanists and their criminal followers are being exposed for you to see, and it's been very visible for most of us for a very long time, at least 40 years or more. Those above will never give dates because the enemy's ground forces, which include the system, are always listening. So they're never going to give you a date. Every time you hear a date being kicked out, you should really be aware that's not the date from upstairs. That's a date to something else, and usually something that the system set up. They have said that they will play the Hillary White House video, or at least portions of it at the end. You see, many of the Never-Trumpers believe it's all a LARP and have turned a blind eye to the truth. And the subconscious remembers everything. Those that go west get a mind wipe, but they're going to be in the west, and there is evil there. So it'll be something they'll be challenged with at some point in time. Even though the people that have committed the crime here are not turned loose and won't trouble them, it can never be used as propaganda against the people. Again, that Satanism, pedophilia, witchcraft, and paganism is just a religion or natural, or that these heinous crimes don't exist. And it ensures that those are moving west, when it happens or something arises the next time, they'll be triggered. Their subconscious will be triggered, and they won't be able to erase that. It'll always be carried, and that really will help them. But the White House video was really, really bad, and this is not something you can shy away from. And the people who jumped off and decided that Trump and Q were just a LARP and it wasn't real after all, these people are really going to be with egg on their face. I mean, you knew the truth and you decided to take the easy way out. And this is what really kind of ticked a lot of people off. There was one girl, she was talking about leading the people to the East Gate. They got them all out, they got them up there, and they got to the East Gate, and they freaked out. And they turned and they ran for the West Gate. They didn't just run, they pounded on the door to get in. It left all these people standing there, just flabbergasted. And it is because of the propaganda that you'll be judged, or they'll be goody two-shoes, or that's not the way it works at all. And that's something that the West made up so that you would go back to them. And even though you were told that, many people just could not get past that entrainment. So it made people upset. You were promoted up and you decided not to go. So I hope that whatever the Allied forces planned in regard for using the tape is successful, and that it will help these people who are moving west. Some people consider themselves awake as far back as their youth in the 90s, but the truth is the fight's been going on longer than they've been alive. Many involved directly have been under duress for more than 20 years. They said that all of us would be pleased at what our patience has allowed them to complete for all of us who are lawfully on the exit. They retrieved a great many who are missing in the system. You know, the counterparts, the dolls. You might be in one place, you might know where your double is, but does your double know where all the dolls are? They had to be located. And they did something special for us all in regards to Earth and moving, as well as moving east and west. So they took care of our relatives who were redirected west because they couldn't make the higher gate. They made sure these people are safe and have what they need and want, and that's a relief for those of us who worried for them. It's going to be a straight three-way division: east, west, and south to the pit. The truth is, those who are lawfully on the exit will exit together and at the same time. And yes, we still get a fireworks show, and they repeated that. It's part of the global announcement of the divisions of the family, which is the protocol for the exit. And it doesn't mean that President Trump might not have announcements, or others might not have announcements, but the system likes to merge them all into one thing and make you think it's just one announcement you're expecting them to, but it isn't. There is a global announcement that is separate from anything else that President Trump does. And of course you're talking about Biden, but we don't really talk about that. Because he's not really the president. And I don't know how many of you figured that out. A very long time ago, we were told that when the exit occurred, they each pull their share of the mat, and anything left experienced cataclysms, which seem to imply that the mat is a landmass, or some equivalent of it on the etheric side. Since nothing can exist without a spirit or its ethereal part, it would be a type of cataclysmic event here inside, even if it was an ethereal mat. Volcanoes will pop, tsunamis will hit, meteors and asteroids and pieces of the sun's hit. The rest is imaginable. All these criminals you see at the moment will be extinct. They are already being erased from the hard drive, which would have carried them to another path, and the rest are bound on a hard drive with hellskits and destined to the pit. They were being bound on the sun from November through January. Some of the individuals required very, very elaborate binding to ensure that they'd never be loose again. This is complete and they're sealed and ready. When the incarnate stands, it's pulled to their spirit, which is sealed to the pit. I once asked, what would they see when they stand up? What does their devil do? And they said, ooh, it eats them. So there's a lot that goes into it that we're just not really told. And they're not going to get away with anything, no matter what you see going on in law at the moment. When the sun goes nova, the pieces of the sun along with the seal all fall into the pit, and that's the finish of all of them. We're in the final stages now. Eve says she's ready to take Earth now. Well, I hope I brightened up your morning coffee with a bit of laughter. And I have a text video with more updates from January through February that I'm about to put out. So, you have a great day, and we'll talk to you again.